All right. Hope everybody's doing fantastic today. That music just kind of got me in the groove. I don't know if you guys have been moving and grooving today. I actually play in a pickleball league, and this morning from 8 to 9, I was playing some pickleball. I love the game, and if you guys haven't tried it, it's good from age 5 to 105. You guys in the comments section, please let me know where you're checking in from. Good. Lexington, Tennessee, Alabama. David talks about stuff. Good. I like to see that. Hey, Bonnie from Bowling Green, Ohio, not too far from my stomping grounds of Cleveland, Ohio. We got Meridian, Idaho, Brian Wynn. Nicely done. And hey, I appreciate everybody joining us on a Friday afternoon. So today, let's talk about sugar and some of the perils of sugar. Specifically, we're talking about added sugars. Our country, America, we suffer from a major, intense, powerful sweet tooth. And we're gravitating towards the wrong foods, the wrong sweeteners. And if you look at it, most Americans are actually consuming a incredible 30 added teaspoons of sugar a day. 30. Now, according to just to put that into perspective, according to the American Heart Association, we want the upper limit for men to be 9 added teaspoons and for women 6 added teaspoons. And Jess, if you could just put up the first slide for a sec, you can see here, right? Sugar, 30 added teaspoons of sugar a day. That comes out to 160 pounds of sugar a year. And just to put that into perspective for y'all, about 200 years ago, we were consuming roughly 4 pounds of added sugar per person per year. Now, when we're talking about added sugar, if you go to the next slide, Bess, we are talking about all these different forms of empty calories. We're talking about sugar, brown sugar, raw sugar, honey, molasses, fructose, corn syrup, agave, maple syrup. You can see all these that the food manufacturers put into their ingredients in their food products. So, and when you look at how ubiquitous these added sugars are in all the packaged, boxed, and canned foods, it's little wonder that we're consuming 30 plus added teaspoons of sugar a day. Now, the bottom line here is that we are pounding added sugars like there's absolutely no tomorrow. And consequently, many of us will have, unfortunately, a lot fewer tomorrows. So let's talk about some of the perils that happens when we consume too much added sugar, like so many of Americans do. So added sugars have been linked to something called the shortening of our telomeres. And telomeres are basically, they're the caps, like the end of a shoelace. They're the caps at each strand of our chromosomes and DNA. And, they've been linked, meaning these telomeres, they've been linked to protecting our genetic data, regulating our aging process. And so the last thing that we want to do is shorten and inadvertently fray the ends of these telomeres. And there's been some beautiful research done on the actual lengthening of telomeres, which the scientific community did not think was possible, by Dr. Dean Ornish, who many of you have heard of, kind of a colleague of my father's, and along with Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn. And she was actually able to win the Nobel Prize for her work showing that you can actually lengthen telomeres with a whole food plant-based diet in 3 months. And this was done in conjunction with Dr. Dean Ornish, who took his cohort of men that had prostate cancer, elevated PSA levels. And in 3 months, just 3 months, they were able to show that you can lengthen these telomeres, which again, up until that point in time, scientists did not think that that was possible to do. So that's pretty darn encouraging stuff. Now, I want to stress, because I don't want there to be confusion, naturally occurring sugars like those found in berries, in kiwi, in eggplant, in quinoa, butternut squash, pinto beans, these do not cause the same disruption in blood sugar and insulin spikes and DNA damage that pure added sugars do. And you may be asking, why in the world is that? And that is because of one word. It starts with an F, and it is the wonderful, magical, you guessed it, fiber, which is only found in plants, which has a wonderful gelling effect that makes us feel full. And it also binds to the sugar that's in whatever food that we're eating, whether it's the fruit, whether it's the beans, and it slows down the rate at which those sugars are absorbed into our bloodstream. So really, that fiber is the magical ingredient, nutrient, that is like putting a big log on the fire that burns at a nice, slow rate. Now, I want to emphasize there's almost no limit to how much naturally occurring sugars that you can eat. We have almost 37 trillion cells that make up our bodies. And what do those cells run on? They run on sugars. They run on carbohydrates. It's our primary fuel source, not only for our bodies, but it is the fuel source for our incredible brains. Our brains burn roughly 500 calories a day in the form of these sugars. So let me give you an example. Let's take a banana. So a banana has roughly 15 grams of sugar in it. And however, we let it slip, pun intended there, because the fructose that's attached, that is in there, is attached to almost 4 grams of fiber. However, when we remove the sugar from the fiber, which happens when we juice, we lose many of the health benefits. So, Bess, if you could go to the next slide, I want to show this to people. So, for example, you can see on the left here, we have a medium-sized orange. And if you eat that medium-sized orange, you're going to take in about 45 calories. You're going to take in 2.5 grams of fiber and about 9 grams of sugar. However, if we drink an 8-ounce glass of orange juice, we're going to get almost 3 times the amount of calories. That's 134 calories. We're going to get only 0.5 gram of fiber. That's, what is that? 6 times less fiber to help slow down that sugar. And we've got 23 grams of sugar. That is almost 2.5 times the amount of sugar that we have in that orange. So this is why if you're drinking apple juice, orange juice, tomato juice, any of these juices, this can be a bit of an issue. Now, added sugars, they're not just added calories, or I should say empty calories. They can also be potentially toxic. So in addition to piling on the weight, they also can contribute to chronic Western disease. So, for example, the added sugars help fuel cancer. The added sugars promote inflammation in our arteries. That's also contributing to heart disease. And all of these added sugars, they actually can turn into fat that pile up on our livers, leading to a ridiculously common condition that's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It is the fastest growing form of liver disease in this country right now. And just like with alcoholics, and remember, what happens to alcoholics? They get liver fibrosis, which is basically scarring of the liver. And what is alcohol? Alcohol is just basically, it's simple sugars. All right. So just like alcoholics, sugaraholics also damage their liver. And remember, it's the industrial added sugar, not the fructose intake, that's associated with the severity of the scarring of the livers. Now, aside from non-alcoholic fatty liver, I want you to know that salt isn't the only white crystal that promotes elevated blood sugar. I should say elevated blood pressure. There was an article that appeared in the journal Open Heart, and they published this analysis that determined that added sugars play a, quote, major role in the development of hypertension. And they found that it can boost blood pressure by 7 on the diastolic, that's the upper number, over 5, which is 7 is the systolic, 7 is the systolic, 5 is the diastolic, 7 over 5, in just 8 weeks. And they also found that in people consuming just 25% of their calories from added sugar, there was a triple risk of death from cardiovascular disease. And I shouldn't have said just 25%. Unfortunately, because added sugars are so ubiquitous, they're in and over and through everything we're consuming right now, most Americans are getting 25% of their caloric consumption each day from these added sugars. So whether you're chugging a soda, whether you are eating a yogurt, you're spooning up cereal, I'll bet you dollar to donuts that there's added sugars in all these products. And Bess, if you go to the next slide. So if you can make that big, make that slide big. There you go. So you can see here on the left here, we've got that Yoplait yogurt. So that little 6-ounce jar of Yoplait yogurt that we're going to down in about 15 seconds has 26 grams of added sugar in it. And that may not mean much to any of you, 26 grams, but I'm going to teach you a little trick right now. There's 4 grams of sugar in a teaspoon. So we just take that 26, we divide it by 4, and that gives us 6.5 teaspoons of sugar went into that Yoplait yogurt. Look at the, I'm going to make my screen just a little bigger here. There you go. Look at that teriyaki marinade and sauce by La Choy. In 1 tablespoon, there's 8 grams of sugar, which is basically effectively 2 teaspoons, right? We divide that 8 by 4. That Smucker's jam has 3 teaspoons of added sugar. That Ken's fat-free sun-dried vinaigrette tomato vinaigrette has 3 teaspoons of sugar in just 2 tablespoons. It's in pasta sauce there, right? 11 grams, which is almost 3 teaspoons. It's in instant oatmeal, right? 17 grams. That's over 4 grams, 4 teaspoons of sugar. And then if you're drinking, any kind of sugary beverages, you can expect, anywhere between 6 to 10 teaspoons of sugar in those products. So let's go to the next slide, Beth. And here you can see, so for example, this is a barbecue sauce. And what I want to show you here is that, again, there's so much added sugar that's in so many boxed, canned, and packaged goods. And as you can see here on the right-hand column below 70, you'll see 14 grams of added sugar. By law, the food manufacturers now have to list, in addition to total sugars in the product, they have to list the added sugars, which means sugars that are coming from sugar, maple syrup, whatever, as opposed to naturally occurring sugars that are in oats or beans or whatever. So total sugars, there's 15 grams, added sugars, 14 grams. And then if we want to just check out and see, well, where are those 14 grams of added sugar coming from? You can see here in the ingredient list, our second ingredient is sugar. Our third ingredient is brown sugar. Our fifth ingredient, 1, 2, 3, 4. Our fifth ingredient is molasses. Our eighth ingredient is maple syrup. Our ninth ingredient is raisin paste. And then we got a little bourbon whiskey, right? Why not? But you can see here, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sugars in this barbecue sauce. All right, let's go to the next slide, Bess. So let's check out Honey Nut Cheerios made with real honey. Next slide. And then we can see here, we come down to the sugars. You can see total sugars are 12 grams, including added sugar, 12 grams. So all the added sugars are coming from, let's look at the ingredient list to see, well, our second ingredient is sugar. Our fourth ingredient is honey. And our fifth ingredient is brown sugar syrup. So even they're highlighting on the, if you can go back to the first slide there with the Honey Nut Cheerios on the front, they're highlighting there made with real honey, but the reality is that the real honey is only comprising like one of 4 different added sugars they're using. And just so everybody knows, 1 tablespoon of any added sugars is 50 calories. 1 teaspoon is 16 calories. All right, Bess, if we can go to the next slide. Let's go one more slide. All right, let's look at this slide. This is Heinz tomato ketchup, and they're calling out no salt added. But in my mind, I'm going, okay, if there's no added salt, that means they're bumping up some other ingredient, probably fat or the sugars. And so let's go here. Now, they are not abiding by the current guidelines because they don't have how much added sugars in there. They just have total sugars. So if you find a product that has not made the switch over yet, the only way you can know is to actually go and look at the ingredients. And we go and we look at the ingredients. You'll see the first ingredient is tomato concentrate from red ripe tomatoes. And the second ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. And I can tell you that, all these added sweeteners are basically the same, but the worst offender of them all is high fructose corn syrup. It actually does a real number on our metabolism, even beyond all these other added sweeteners. And then you can see there, we also have as our 1, 2, 3 is our fourth ingredient. We also have corn syrup. So there you go. Let's go to the next slide, please. And you can see here, granola. Most granolas are loaded with oil. They're loaded with added sugars. There's just, for most of these food manufacturers, there's no way around it. So let's come down and see how many sugars are in this granola by Bob's Red Mill. You can see here, we've got total sugar 5 grams, and then includes 5 grams of added sugars. Not surprising to me. And then you can look at the ingredients to see that our third, fourth ingredients are brown sugar and maple syrup. Now, where these ingredients occur on the ingredient statement is important because by law, they have to list in descending order by the weight of each ingredient in the product. So if it's up near the first, second, third, or fourth ingredient, there's a lot of it in there. So brown sugar and maple syrup, there's almost a little over a teaspoon that's in each one of these Bob's Red Mill granolas. So if you can take away that screen now, there you go. So I just want to, give a very, let me open up my screen here. Let's see, there we go. Trying to open up so I can read comments here as well. Why am I having let's see there. There we go. No, that's not it. Oh, jeez. There we go. Because I want to basically give just a quick little plug for our food line, because as many of you may or may not know, in I would say 98% of our products, we have no added sugars. Even our granolas, we don't have any added sugars. Instead, what we're using is whole fruit sweetened dates that come with all the fiber and everything attached. So there's no added sugars that are in there. But we, of course, also have our cereals, our Rip's Big Bowl cereals that have no added sugars, no added oils. Again, we use strawberries, we use blueberries, we use dates, we use bananas. We're the real deal when it comes to that. The only product that we have in our assortment that does have just a kiss of maple syrup is our whole grain pizza crust kits that have about 1 to 2 grams of maple syrup in each serving, and that's about half of a teaspoon. All of our chilies and stews have no added sugars, so we're super proud of having what we believe is one of the cleanest, most wholesome food lines on the planet. So with that, Bess, I would love to take any questions that people have. How about blueberries, strawberries? Well, it spike blood sugar. Sounds like they're okay due to the fiber in them. Michael, great question. Thanks for asking. And I would tell you, knock yourself out with strawberries, blueberries. It's not going to be a problem with your spiking your blood sugar. That fiber will totally watch out for you and be your friend. What about fresh squeezed at home? I guess, RJ, you're talking about juicing. Again, you're probably removing the vast majority of the fiber when you squeeze your own juice. And, as human beings, I'll tell you, we were meant to masticate our foods. We're meant to chew them up. And listen, I know it's easy. I know it's tasty. I know that everybody loves to blend up, their smoothies, their juices, all that jazz. But depending upon where you are on your health journey, you might just consider chewing more of your food as opposed to drinking it. All right. What's a good ketchup brand with no added sugar? You know what? I will have to look it up, but I know that there's one that has naturally occurring sugars with dates, and I cannot think of it off the top of my head, but we'll have to get it, Bess, and put it in the show notes if we can do that. Can you discuss the sugars in plant milks? Hey, Janet. So there are, depending upon the milk that you're drinking, there can be a lot of added sugars in there. And I would tell you to refrain from them. Try and find a really clean plant-based milk. For example, Elmhurst makes an oat milk, an almond milk, a walnut milk. It's just 1 or 2 ingredients: oats in the oat milk, walnuts in the walnut milk. Sometimes some of them have like walnuts and salt, or I should say almonds and salt. But Elmhurst is by far the cleanest, and the sugars that are in there are they're naturally occurring because there's sugars in oats and walnuts, in almonds, and all these foods. If you're going to do an almond milk, I think it's Eden. Eden makes a really clean soy milk with just water and whole soybeans. That's really creamy and really nice. Is date syrup and maple syrup considered okay in small amounts only? I'll tell you, like, our goal for when we're doing our immersion programs and for people that are, that have heart disease, that are trying to lose weight, that have high blood pressure, that are diabetic, is to consume less than 2 added teaspoons of added sweeteners a day. So, we sometimes put sweeteners, a teaspoon in our salad dressing. If we happen to do a dessert like a silk cacao. I say silk and tofu, and cacao and a little bit of maple syrup, chocolate mousse for dessert. That'll have like a teaspoon of maple syrup in it. So date syrup would work just as well as maple syrup for that. Absolutely. How does sugar affect the arteries? Well, I can't tell you specifically the process in which sugar kind of stiffens the arteries. I just know from everything that I've read, it is my understanding that added sugars contribute to the stiffening of the artery walls and also cardiovascular disease. So, again, when you look at the fact that 25% of this country, I shouldn't say 25%, the vast majority of this country is consuming 25% of their calories from added sweeteners, that's a problem because it's contributing to weight gain. Weight gain is contributing to cancer, to diabetes, to heart disease. It's also interconnected, right? I mean, so the added sugar is just one aspect. We also have the fact that so many of us are eating the wrong kind of fat. We're eating mostly animal products, dairy products that has a lot of saturated fat, right? That's not a healthy form of fat. We also have the issue that most of us are consuming, right? When you're consuming these foods, you're getting cholesterol that also is involved with the arteries. So it's this confluence of the wrong kind of fat, cholesterol, all this added sugar combines to cause chronic Western disease. Do the pizza crusts need to be in the fridge? I would tell you, if you purchase our pizza crust kits, as soon as you get them, I would cut it open, put it in the freezer bag, and put those in the freezer. And that you can keep the little sauce packs ambient in your cupboard, no problem. But to keep those pizza crusts as fresh as possible, I would put those in the freezer as soon as you get them. So are dates better due to the fiber content? They still have sugar naturally, and it seems like a lot. Well, dates do have a lot of fiber, and I'm not telling you to double fist dates, because dates are calorie dense. They are much more calorie dense than, for example, a apple or an orange or a watermelon or blueberries, right? Because all those have their water. So if you're looking to lose weight, I wouldn't be snacking on a lot of dates. But if you want to put a little sweetness into your cereal bowl, into your salad dressing, just throw in, like I love, or even if you make your own milk, right? You can throw just a date or two into the blender along with your, whatever it is you're making, the almond milk or the oat milk. So a little, like 1 or 2 dates go a long way to help sweeten something. But don't be doing 15 to 20 dates a day. That's probably not a good move. Any fruits, veggies to avoid or eat more of for high blood pressure? Well, I would tell you, what? No, the only veggies, or actually it's technically a fruit, that I would avoid is too much avocado, just because of the calorie density of avocados. But when it comes to avoiding, yes, is in fact. So I would be careful with avocados. I would also be careful with coconuts. Coconuts are just, they contain more saturated fat than any food on the planet. They're about 92% saturated fat. But other than those things, avocados, coconuts, and obviously too many nuts and seeds go to town on fruits and vegetables. They're so calorie light. They're so nutrient dense. They are so packed with water and fiber. They're the bullseye. They really are. And don't forget those cruciferous leafy greens too, that are so wonderful. Any chance that you have a list of foods with the brands that pass the test of all this stuff? Great info. You know what? Off the top of my head, this industry is changing so fast. There's so many new products. I mean, I used to have a list when I wrote each one of my books, but some of those brands are no longer around. Others, they continually mess with their nutritional facts panel and their ingredients. So from one year to the next, you just never know. So I will tell you, the best thing that you can personally do is become a ninja reading label warrior. I believe if you go to PLANTSTRONG.com, we have a downloadable 1 or 2 pager on how to read a label and what to look for when it comes to salt, sugar, and fat, so that you can tell within 15 seconds if that's a product that belongs in your cart or not. All right, the vegan veteran. Can you do a little deeper dive into the pitfalls of blended frozen fruit within smoothies? I want to understand a little better. Sometimes I have 2 smoothies a day. Well, vegan veteran, I would ask you, if you've had your blood work checked at all, I bet your triglycerides are probably screaming high. And what happens is when you put all that fruit in that blender, you have a super concentrated source of sugars, and you are basically pulverizing up that fiber into a million little pieces, and it can't do its job as effectively as it could when it was in its whole form. So your fiber is basically rendered almost useless, not completely. You've got a huge amount of calories, predominantly sugar, that you're consuming probably in a very, very short period of time. So I would encourage you, vegan veteran, instead, take all that frozen fruit, put it into a bowl and whatever else you put in that blender, and just try eating it just as an experiment one day. See how long it takes you and see how you feel afterwards. And my bet is you'll be a little bit more satiated and a little bit more satiated and full for longer as well. What's a great way to stop sugar consumption? Well, if you got a sweet tooth, just go to the fruit. Like, you wouldn't believe the amount of fruit that I have in a day, whether it's bananas, blueberries, strawberries, frozen mango chunks that I throw in the microwave for 45 seconds and then just kind of snack on them. And I'm not kidding here, gang, when I say that I probably consume 10 to 16 pieces of fruit a day. That's spread out over the day. Grapefruits, melons. You know, I find that I can only do about 1 apple at a time because it does something to my stomach. It feels like a little acidic or something like that. But I can do unlimited amounts of strawberries, blueberries, bananas, oranges, things of that nature. Agave syrup is not recommended. I've heard conflicting feedback. Well, the word on the street is that agave syrup is, you know, it's got a very, very low glycemic index. But frankly, I couldn't care about that. It's basically just another added sweetener. It's 50 calories per tablespoon, 16 calories per teaspoon. You know, it all depends how much of any of these you're using. If you're using, again, you know, the American Heart Association recommends that men do less than 9 added teaspoons a day, women 6 or less. I still think that's too high. I think you should be aim for 2 or 3 or less is ideal. But just don't have the added sweeteners in the house. And when you want to sweeten something up, I have some medjool dates. They do a phenomenal job. And again, now it's coming attached to the fiber. What do I eat when I crave chocolate? I think I mentioned it earlier. I love making a chocolate mousse with just cacao powder, either in a little bit of avocado or silken tofu, a little bit of maple syrup, and whiz that up in a food processor, and you've got a pretty incredible chocolate treat. The other thing is, and again, this is just a me touting our food line. We have chocolate granola that has no added sugar in it. You got cacao nibs in there. It's the best chocolate granola that I know of. Highly recommend it. What's the best pickleball paddle you've used? Oh, Adam, you. So I just got a new pickleball paddle, and I'm spacing on the name of it. I think it's like a Jula. It's a Jula, and it's the carbon fiber one, and it is phenomenal. Truly. Thanks, Adam. If we didn't get to your question, we will answer in the comments after the live. Sounds great. So, Bess, everybody, I really appreciate you guys spending time with us this Friday. Let's be cognizant of all the ubiquitous sugars that are out there in this culture. And by avoiding all those added sugars, you can help keep the weight off, help prevent the hypertension, help prevent those telomeres from shortening before their time, and you can truly live your best Plant Strong life. All right, see you guys next Friday.